Welcome to my YouTube channel, Pro Football GMRx. I am your host, Roy Pickett. I will be providing you with my insights and opinions about choices and decisions that general managers face and make throughout the year. In this episode, I will be explaining different personnel packages and my preferences. You may have heard the terms 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 21 personnel, and have no idea what they mean. The first digit is the number of running backs, and the second digit is the number of tight ends. You simply add as many wide receivers as you need to the running backs and tight ends until you get to a total of 5. In this first example is 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end. In order to get the 5 players total, you have to add the 3 wide receivers. In 2018, the NFL average was 66%. I believe this was the most favored personnel package throughout the NFL. And it looks like people are relying so heavily on this formation because of the offenses that are coming out of the colleges. The read options, the RPOs that you hear so much about, the spread concepts. So there's a lot of throwing, as well as the rule changes in the league concerning pass interference. So it's turning into a throwing league. So a lot of people like this package because you get your 3 wide receivers on the field. I would prefer not to rely so heavily on this formation group, and I would like to have my team in 11 personnel at about a third of the average, like 22% instead of the 66 that's prevailing. Now, that's pretty radical when you consider that San Francisco was the lowest in terms of using this personnel package at 39%, and then you take a look at the top end, Los Angeles Rams last year with Sean McVay. They went out here with this formation package at 87% of the time. So that's a big change from where the NFL is going and where I'd like to see. Here's the 21 personnel. Let me just kind of give you a quick backstory. You see all of these names up here in positions, and you're like, Michael Gallup and Zach Ertz, and those guys don't play on the same team. Well, the reason I am doing this video, I'm currently in the process of writing a book where I'm essentially put myself as a general manager of a fictional team back in 2011, going through the draft process, signing free agents, whatnot, until I created a team with the roster that I would like. And so I'm writing this book and showing the different personnel packages and how I think a team should be run. So in this particular example of 21 personnel, I've got Michael Gallup and Christian Kirk as my wide receivers. I have Zach Ertz as my featured tight end, Kyle Juszczyk as my fullback, and David Johnson as my running back. Okay, so with that little piece out of the way, I just want it to be known that I prefer fullbacks and tight ends because, one, they're cheaper, and you can create mismatches with them because, like I said, most of the NFL is going away from this, and I think New England showed in the Super Bowl last year when they beat the Rams and on their way to the Super Bowl, to the playoffs, what can happen when you zig when they zag. You want to be running the ball when everybody else is throwing the ball and create mismatches that way. So I'm really focusing on building my team with tight ends. In this particular group, I wanted to run the 21 personnel out there about 24% of the time. And I believe in doing things in balance. So that first slide that I showed you with the 11 personnel being like 22, this is 24. You'll see the rest of my slides here in a minute. I'm trying to not favor one personnel package over another because I don't want to tip my hand to my opponent. I want them to be afraid of everything and have to defend everything. So going from that 11 personnel to this 21 personnel, all I've done is I've taken out my wide receiver Quincy Enunwa and replaced him with my fullback Kyle Juszczyk. And again, this is going to be my meat and potatoes. 24% of my offense, 1 out of every 4 plays. I'd like to see these players on the field. So now we're talking about 12 personnel. One running back, two tight ends, and the two wide receivers. This is, again, 19%, a very untelling thing. I'm not leaning too much on it. Like the Rams were, like I said, 87% at 11. I don't want to be that heavy in one particular package or one personnel grouping. So here I'm at 19%. The NFL average is about 16%. So, there's New England. They don't do this very often. They're down at 3%. The most was Houston and Philadelphia at about 36%. And then there's a bunch of teams that are close to that average. Arizona, Atlanta. You can see the different teams there. Basically, all I'm doing here is I'm taking out my fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, and I'm bringing in Austin Hooper. He's my other Stanford tight end that I drafted. So I got him and Ertz out there. So the defenses are not sure. I got two tight ends and David Johnson, a big wide receiver like Quincy Enunwa. Are we just going to get the ball run on us here? Or I can just have Hooper, Ertz, Johnson could even spread out and give them a 5-wide look. So to me, I like the ability to show a lot of different things out of the same personnel package. Here's the 22 personnel, which is where I kind of go off the deep end. I got two running backs, two tight ends, and one wide receiver. And again, it's about 18% of my offense. So I'm giving everybody their fair share of what to look for. The NFL average is like 3%. There are teams in this league, Cleveland, Green Bay, Houston, my team, the Colts, Rams, Dolphins, you can see the list. A lot of teams don't use this package. Why? Because they don't have a fullback like Kyle Juszczyk, for one. Or they don't have two tight ends like Hooper and Ertz because they're so focused on other things. I'm looking at this as a way to take advantage of my opponents. If teams aren't seeing it because they're playing teams every week that don't do this, and then all of a sudden they run into my team and I'm out there 18% of the time doing this to them, thinking they're going to have a hard time to defend it. The teams that did this the most were New England and San Francisco. New England had Gronkowski, San Francisco has Juszczyk, so you can see why they would prefer this package. But even them, they didn't do it nearly as much as I want to do it. And then here's my 13 personnel. One running back, three tight ends, and my one wide receiver. This is about 10% of my offense. The NFL average is only 3, so I'm on the upper end of that. The teams around me were Baltimore last year at 7%. Cleveland was the most at 15%. Simply put, most teams just don't have 3 really good tight ends that they want to throw out there on the field very often. Here, my third tight end is Ian Thomas from Indiana. I got him in the 2018 draft in the 4th round. So I got a little super unit of tight ends, and I really want to feature them in my offense. So hopefully this was beneficial for you. You learned something, maybe a new way of looking at things. I just look at the way rosters are constructed with the different salaries that different position groups are being paid, and I think that the fullback tight end combo is really something to exploit in this league. So I don't know if anybody's going to buy into my theory, but that's how I would do it. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and that concludes this video.